look about the research problem. A research problem refers to some difficulty which a researcher experiences either in a theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution for the same. Thus, a research problem must contain the following ingredients. It must be involved with an individual or a group of persons or a geographical area where the problem exists. Secondly, there must be an objective to attain it. And when we look at the objective, it must have at least two alternative courses of action. And most importantly, the researcher must have some doubt to select the most suitable alternatives out of it. Now we are going to look about selecting the problem. Researchers will always have a doubt in how to select a problem for doing a research. Before proceeding the research, the researcher problem must be carefully selected. Sometimes help may be taken from the research guide. Most importantly, overdone subject area should be avoided because already there are much researchers done in that area, and the research we are going to do is not going to give much impact or input to that area. Then think twice before doing a controversial subject, and too narrow or too vague problems should be avoided. Selected research should be familiar and feasible in all aspects. Before choosing a research problem, just check it out the importance of the subject, the qualifications and trainings of the researcher in doing research in that area, the cost involved in doing such research, time factor which is involved in completing such a research. Selection of problem must be preceded by a preliminary study, because while doing a pilot study, a researcher comes to know about the plus and minus of that research, and he can decide whether he can proceed further. The research problem must be properly selected from the mind of the researcher only, to avoid boring, because he is the person who is going to do the research continuously, and if the research problem or the research itself is boring for the researcher, it will not give a good result for him. We frame a research problem. Let us do it with the help of an example. For example, if a researcher says that he wants to find out why Japan is more productive than India, so his problem statement will be why Japan is more productive than India. If we look into this research problem statement, it is a research problem statement, and it is a very valid statement. It has a very greater impact, contribution to the society, to the country, etc., etc. But when we look into that, this statement, research statement, is not very narrow or clear. We will get questions in our mind. What is the sector in which Japan is more productive than India, and which geographical area it is involving, and who says that Japan is more productive than India, and all the demographic variables, especially women or men productivity is more than India. We have n number of questions in our mind when we read this research problem statement. We have already seen that research problem statement should be clearly defined. So in this case, we can frame like this. Do Japan workers perform better than Indian workers in construction industry? In this statement, we do not have any questions, unnecessary questions in our mind, because the statement itself clearly mentions that the Japan workers' performance is to be measured and compared with the Indian workers, especially in the construction industry. So, in this research problem statement, the statement is very clearly defined, and the researcher himself has a clarity in his mind that he has to measure the performance of the workers of both Japan and Indian workers in construction industry. Thus, a research problem statement should be very precise, simple, very clear, and it should not have any unnecessary questions in our mind of the researcher, and the researcher must be feel very easy to continue and frame his research design and methodology and also techniques to do his research and take his research further. Thus, a clearly defined research problem statement helps a researcher in many ways. First of all, he gets a clarity for himself how to proceed or which is the problem he has to attain first. Secondly, in framing his research methodology, he feels very easy to adapt. Since his statement of problem is very clear and narrow, he comes to a conclusion that he has to adapt this type of research design. He has to choose this type of a population or selecting the samples and choosing the techniques, whether qualitative or quantitative. And he will have a very clear state of research mind, and he will not be get bored in doing his research. Thus, a research problem statement framing definitely and clearly is a very important step in doing a research. This is the first and basic step any researcher has to do while proceeding with the research. Without having a clear and defined research problem, a researcher cannot do his research in an effective and efficient manner. Hope this video is beneficial for you. We shall meet in the next video. Thank you and happy learning.